So Power Rangers issue number 3 is finally out, and oh boy, this issue was freaking crazy. Now, every month I praise Ryan with his writing and his choices that he makes within the story, but the plot twist that we got at the end of this issue, one of them we kind of knew coming due to spoilers for next month's issue, but what Ryan did with Drakkon and the Horrid King and the whole plotline with that, I was not expecting it to go down that way, so props to Ryan, and we'll get into that when we get into it, but let's talk about Power Rangers issue number 3 by Boom Studio Comics. So the issue opens up with the Horrid King narrating about his race and his people, and what's really interesting about this flashback is that we're not given a time or a place or a location. He just narrates about his people, saying how they were a peaceful planet, they were wise, they tamed their world, their own nature, and then they turned their attention to beyond, life beyond their own planet, and they knew there were other people out in space, but they believed it would take a lifetime to find them with their technology, so they attempted to bend reality to their will, and for their greediness, they were punished and their planet exploded. But the blast of the planet exploding or imploding, whatever you want to call it, didn't kill them. They somehow survived, and the Horrid King describes it as being trapped between the reality between being deaf or alive, so they are neither living nor dead. So it's really interesting of what they are. So the Horrid King is telling the story to Drakkon, and Drakkon's sucking up to the guy saying, wow, you've become one of the most powerful races in the galaxy, soon you'll rule them all. So Drakkon's really sucking up to this guy as he has an open conversation with this guy, telling him their plans and what's going on, how he's going to deliver the Omega Rangers to him, and they're going to feed on him and then take over the universe. So yeah, Drakkon's really sucking up to this Horrid King by talking to him. So the Omega Rangers reunite, and they have to come up with a plan to get rid of these horrids. So they've got plans where they can leave the ship and abandon ship, blow up the ship, take out the horrids with Drakkon, but they say that they need Drakkon alive for them to find the Imperials. So 11 comes up with a plan, but also being 11 and having a snarky comment saying how the Rangers throw away their own morals when their life is in danger. I love 11 with how sassy he can be and how Ryan writes him. So 11 comes up with a plan saying, hey, we need something with a lot of life energy or a lot of energy in general to draw them all towards it, and that's going to be the plan. So Jason says, hey, if that's your idea, I'm fine with letting someone else lead for once and see how their plan goes. So Jason is willing to let 11 lead the plan to save the ship. Jason's putting the hands of everyone in a freaking robot. Crazy, huh? But I trust 11. If 11's smart enough to have a plan, then 11's got something going on, that is for sure. So as the team makes their way to the airlock, Jason makes this comment saying he's glad to see that Yale is finally getting along with Zack, or Zack is finally getting along with Yale. And Trini makes this joke, I want to say. I'm guessing it's like a cynical joke that Trini makes in the comments. It's hard to read with the situation going on right now, so I guess she's making one of those ride or die jokes saying, be careful, you might end up being buddies. So I guess that's saying that with everything going on, like if they don't survive the situation, they're going to become best friends and die together. I don't know, it's a weird bit of dialogue. So then Zack tells his childhood story about a stray dog that his dad brought home. He was best friends with it every day until he got between him and its bowl of food, and the dog bit him. So Trini says maybe it was scared and it needed a little bit of love, and then Zack says maybe it got hungry. So it's kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? A metaphor with what's going on with the horrid, I'm guessing. Maybe they need love, maybe they're hungry, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too deep into it. So let's jump to the action where the Rangers jump out of the airlock, because this is where things get crazy. So the Rangers jump out of the airlock and they're sort of driving each bit of hordes of the horrid away from each other, Jason going further into space. And while this is going on, Drakkon and the Horrid King are watching, and Drakkon's like, yeah, they're gonna die. They didn't have any plans on saving me. They're gonna get drained and we're gonna take over this ship. So while they're getting chased, Jason leads them away and summons his red Omega Zord. And I love the Megazords. I know that a lot of people have mixed feeling towards them, but I love the Megazords. Mostly because they've got that Gundam and Evangelion vibe going for them. So, the Megazord's out in space, and the Horrid King has no idea what it is. And Drakkon says, hey, that's a Zord, you should destroy it because it's probably going to destroy the ship. So he tells the Horrid King to send everything you have towards it. And that's what the Horrid King does. Everyone in the ship that the Horrid has beside him, I think it's mostly everyone, goes for the Omega Zord ship, the Red Omega Fire Zord ship surrounding it. And Jason makes a comment saying, this reminds me of the Anointed back in Necessary Evil. So what Jason does is fires up a force field to protect himself. So I'm glad that Jason says he's learnt a few things since his last encounter with Kia and stuff like that. So he's getting better at controlling the Zords, and I do like to see that. So while this is going on, Trini and Zack are fighting off the Horrid. Jason's sort of making the Horrid bounce back for his shields as he's sort of stalling for time while 11 does his master plan. And let's talk about 11 and his master plan. So while this is going on, the Horrid King is having his victory speech, his victory laugh, saying they're going to consume everything, the Rangers are going to die, and Drakkon's like, hey, Horrid King, so many of your children are out there, who's left to protect you in here? And then 11 shows up with Yale saying, hey, I was about to ask the same thing. So the Horrid King is like, hey, I can rip you to pieces and I'll make you watch as I drain your little pet. And as this is going on, I freaking love this. I love this next scene. So while the Horrid King is like threatening 11, you see Drakkon in the background. He picks up this little lead pipe and the Horrid King is making his speech. And as you turn the page, Drakkon kills the Horrid King, impaling him just like he did to Tommy in Shattered Grid. It's basically word for word or panel for panel what happens in how it's drawn. Like if I put them side by side on the screen right now while I'm editing, they are very similar, and I freaking love that. I love that. Drakkon played the Horrid King. He played him like a fool, which I kind of had the feeling that maybe Drakkon was planning something, but this plan gets even deeper and even better with this coming up. Like, this is just, oh my god, I love this plan, what 11 and Drakkon had in store. Like, this is freaking crazy. So, because the Horrid King is dying, the other Horrids are in pain, they're screeching and stuff like that. I'm guessing it's because they don't have their source of connection, their leader is cut off, so I do wonder because they don't disappear, they're just screaming in pain. So I do wonder if the chain of the command with the Horrid is someone else is going to take their place, sort of like survival of the fittest, strongest of the fittest and stuff like that. So while this is going on, Drakkon says to 11 saying, good, you got your message. And this is the big twist of the issue where 11 says to Drakkon saying, your collar's been broadcasting everything you've said in here. You mean to tell me you did that on purpose? So when Drakkon was talking out loud in like the previous issue and stuff like that, 11 was hearing it. So this was part of Drakkon's big brain plan or something, and I just love it. So Drakkon was pretending to turn traitor, so he was hoping that the others would come up with a plan, and they did. So Drakkon says, get us the hell out of here, and they do. So they get the hell out of here because who knows what's going on with the Horrid, if they're going to recover or not. So the Rangers get the heck out of there and jump into hyperspace. Now, what's really interesting is the next bit of dialogue we have between Jason and 11, where Jason says he's a little nervous because he's never been this far out into space before, but then 11 replies with saying, you have been here, you've all been here, but Jason's like, I kind of don't remember because all the different timelines, dimensions, and realities, it gets a little confusing sometimes. So then Jason says, why didn't you tell us about Drakkon feeding you information the entire time? And 11 replies with saying, I calculated and there was a 50-50 chance of Drakkon's intel being authentic, and I was trying to read his emotions, so I had to keep it on the down low because we weren't sure if his plan was going to work or not. And Jason's like, well, I don't question your logic, I question your execution. And 11 just sighs saying, I suppose I deserve that. And Jason's like, hey, when it comes to being in charge, buddy, you gotta deal with the criticism. So, funny little comment from Jason where he says, you gotta like go with whatever way the ball bounces and people are gonna criticize your leadership and stuff like that. So, it's a nice little thing. But while Jason says which way the ball bounces, it's a couple of panels of Zack playing ball with the little kitty cat thing, Yale. So then on the final couple of pages, it ends with Trini putting Drakkon back in his cell, and Drakkon's like, how come you don't trust me anymore? I saved you and stuff like that. So they have a back and forth, and I really do like the artwork of Trini drawn here. So Drakkon's final words in this issue are very, very interesting, where he says, you might want to know what goes in my head because you're about to step into my nightmares made real, and I hope you enjoy yourself here. And then the final page is a sign that says, welcome to Angel Grove, the home of Lord Drakkon, with the remains of the Dragon Zord and the White Tiger Zord. So basically, they're in the fallen Shattered Grid universe, so it's really interesting with how they got here, going to the deepest areas of space, and we kind of knew they were going to the Shattered Grid realm due to comic previews and stuff like that. But either way, I'm really excited and really intrigued with what became of this world, because a lot of people, including myself, just thought the universe collapsed on itself when the timeline was reset at the end of Shattered Grid, but apparently it's just some planet at the far reaches of space, which is very, very interesting. So I do wonder, what is this area doing all the way out here, and how is it still functioning? So that's the big mystery. And that's pretty much the end of the issue. Overall, I think it was a solid issue. Ryan did a really good job with the writing. I enjoyed it quite a fair bit. I loved the Drakkon turn on the Horrid King. That was awesome. And the Horrids aren't dead because Ryan never kills his bad guys. He leaves them alive so the Rangers can have a rogues gallery of enemies out there. So I get the feeling this isn't the last we've seen of the Horrid. They're probably going to appear again later down the line. Gut feeling, whether we see him in Mighty Morphin or Power Rangers or a different comic, I get the feeling this isn't the last we've seen of him, that is for sure. But like I said, overall, solid solid issue, 10 out of 10, I enjoyed it quite a fair bit, and I'm excited for next month's issues in February. So with that said, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, turn on notifications so you never miss a beat, and thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Have a wonderful day or night. Bye!